irresistibly smooth. That is its claim to fame. You sit here, on this chair. Come. You also bring your chair closer or sit there or come closer so you can enjoy it. There's a chair here, there's a chair there. Wonderful. Aishwarya had good sleep. What is that? Some secret.
She's sleeping very well, Swami.
Oh, that's nice.
It's
Sleep
very
is good.
comfortable here.
Oh, you're always welcome here. I'm sure Janani has already told you that. Yeah. We like having you here. It's nice to have Kate back. Yesterday she was chanting Medha Suktam so nicely. Yeah. Very proud of all of you. So happy. So happy to be here and so happy to have you all here. ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 Two, two, one. And we have seen the verse, although it was 68 days ago, I'm informed. So we hope to go to the Bhashya. Yeah. Avissannihitam Guhacharan Nama Mahatpadam Atraitat Samarpitam Ejat Pranat Nimishat Cha Ya Ethad Janata सदसद्वरेण्यं
सदसत्वरेण्यं
परं विज्ञानाद् वरिष्ठं
परं विज्ञानात् वरिष्ठं
प्रजानां.
प्रजानाम्.
Yeah. So here this second section is begun because we saw previously, what did we see? That this aksharam, aksharam means what? Naksharati, that which is, non-perishable, that which is the truth of you, and this aksharam is you, and the aksharam, the word aksharam is come into being. Why? Because that is what was asked by Shaunaka, and that is what was given, by the teacher. Who is the teacher? Angiras. Angiras tells Shaunaka that Paravidya is that through which the akshara is gained. So Paravidya is the Vidya itself is a tool, because the instrumental case is used. Yaya aksharam adhigamyate. Yaya. Ya ye yaha yam ye yaha yaya. Third case. Through which. So the Vidya itself is not the aksharam. That is very clearly clarified. The Vidya is a tool for the aksharam, which is you. Yeah, this is what we have to understand. You are the aksharam, and the Vidya is a shovel, that digs through the dirt to dirt of ragadveshas, dirt of papa punya duritas, dirt of all kinds of notions about oneself, and the Paravidya, the Upanishads, are a very nice shovel. Yeah. In fact, it's a Mahavakya, is a backhoe. That. Why is it called backhoe? It takes you back to yourself. That's why. So it's a backhoe that it unearths all this. Right here, it does an excavation, so to speak, because this avi, this brightness of everything, that which is your own glory, is, as so to speak, buried under a lot of misconceptions, fears, tears, trauma, PTSD, so many things. Yeah, this is what it is. So it's not the job for the faint of heart. I mean, you can't just, have a little, what's that? A spoon. And then, so there's a big excavation. You can't just have a spoon, because the dirt is all impacted and frozen, It's like digging through the frozen earth. You need equipment. And so this Paravidya, so para, that which is a tool for the digging. So you cannot say Shavaloham, I am the shovel. You cannot say, correct? So the shovel is not equal to you. And you can't get attached to the shovel. Oh, it has done so much for me. And I love my backhoe. I'm going to give it a hug. Yeah. That's why it's such big equipment you just take for rent. Even in the unreal world, so to speak, even in the everyday world, you rent. Nobody goes and buys such a thing. Yeah. People have them, you take it for rent, you do the job, you send it back. And then you have you have excavated the treasure. This is like a treasure hunt. And the Upanishad is both a map and the equipment comes for free. Yeah. So this is what the whole thing is. And so this section is begun because that aksharam which is you, we have to see that, because otherwise what happens is that the Paravidya is equated to the aksharam, then still it remains outside of you. That's why it is that which digs through all the misconceptions, the ragas, the dveshas, the various pursuits, because we have so many pursuits and we are confused which one to go first, because the life is a buffet of choices, so many things. What should I do first? It's like when you go to the buffet, what should I eat first? At least there are some things called appetizers, and it's decided for you. You move through this line. But here, everything is appetizing, so I don't know what to start with, and this becomes a very big confusion, correct? And so therefore, the second section is begun because of the mistake one makes in even doing a little transference on the Upanishads. Seeing the Upanishads as Paravidya itself. And it's a very subtle difference. Because the Upanishad is non-separate from Paravidya. Here lies the difficulty, or here lies the sukshmata, the subtlety that we have to understand. Upanishad is Paravidya, no problem. But the thing is, it is a means to gaining that which is myself. So if I get attached to the words, what happens is that I don't let them operate upon me. Just like if I get attached to the backhoe, I don't want to operate it. I don't switch the button on because I'm just admiring the hoe, And that is why I'm not able to turn it on and use it as a means. This is what the whole thing is. And how the Upanishad operates as a means is illustrated here very beautifully. That's why the first two verses are very delightful. The Upanishad operates as a means in a particular way. And how does it do that? It operates in the form of the words of the teacher. Because the teacher is like a filter for the words. Like you have coffee filter. Yeah. So the teacher is the filter, and the filter is what? In which the coffee has percolated. It's not just raw grounds, it's the grounds have got to their aromatic best, because the teacher herself has been in the hot water, of the teaching, and has where there is a certain living of that knowledge. And from that standpoint, the knowledge is given, correct? The coffee is dispensed, and then only it is tasty, right? Because there is a certain percolation that is happening, and so that and so Guru Mukhat, so from the mouth of the teacher to the ears of the students, this is a very interesting way in which the Paravidya is dispensed. So the teacher speaks and the student hears, right? Big deal, that's like every other talk. Here in this mantra itself, Upanishad says it's not like every other thing you know. It's not like anything that you know. Because all things that you know have, you are still the knower, correct? And are you the knower of yourself? Of course. You are the knower of not I, correct? And are you the knower of I? Yes, I am the knower of I and not I. But in knowing the I, the knower is, put to bed with a pacifier. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the job of the teaching. So the teacher has to, first sing a lullaby to the knower. Yeah. Who is the knower? The one who says, I know, I know, I know. And sometimes, in India this is very common, and maybe in other cultures also. There are certain individuals, you start telling something before you have gotten two words, I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. Arey, how do you know what I'm going to say? I know. You can't even tell them how your day was. I know. Today the weather, yeah, I know. I already read, I already this thing. This is what is called pramada, an extreme, case of pramada. What else to say? It's an extreme situation, that this kind of an individual exemplifies. And so in this scenario, everybody has that inner knower who doesn't want to listen to anything. That knower kind of glazes over any listening happening. Yeah. Yeah. So therefore, when the knower comes to class, nothing happens. Ironically speaking, the knower comes to class and goes back without knowing. How sad. So really, the backhoe of the Upanishad, operated by the teacher, ferrets out and removes the knower, uproots the knower first before getting to the akshara, which is yourself. But that's kind of sad. How will I know without the knower? I'm already feeling protective. So I'm just, I'm just feeling like, what are you doing to me? I just want to remain as before. I want to remain as before. I want to be transformed, but only a little bit. So that I can tell my friends, look at the calmness exuding out of me. This is Vedanta. This is how I go with my eyes half closed. And this is Shanti personified. I am Shanti. And this is who I am. This is what I want to do. I just want a little smattering. And you're not saying that. The Pramata is having other ideas. Because as the backhoe, the Pramata sees it coming close, the Pramata also digs deeper into itself. And solidifies its position and refuses to budge. And so, the teacher and the teaching in the form of this backhoe have a big job to do. Very big job. And so, how does this knowledge come as an instrument? So the knowledge of the Upanishads is culled into a thought form or many thought forms. We'll just say one, but that one is repeatedly being deployed. And that thought form, to use a technical term, is called vritti. What kind of vritti? Akhanda akara vritti. The thought form whose akara, whose shape, whose form is akhanda, non-dual. So the non-dual vritti is operated by the teacher in teaching this Upanishad. So the Upanishad, becomes a tool wielded by the teacher, and this non-dual thought form called vritti is communicated in the course of the class. And when this non-dual thought form is communicated, it, what does it do? It charms the Pramata, the knower, out of its socks. Yeah. Yeah. So the teacher is, a teacher has to be many things at once. First you have to say hush, shabai, hush to the Pramata. Put a pacifier on its mouth. So the Pramata has to be tricked and made to go to sleep like a very tantrumy child who is not wanting to go to sleep, who says, I want to explore everything even though one is tired. So the teacher has to hush the Pramata to sleep, and when the Pramata, and the Pramata is a very light sleeper, it's a cantankerous child who is a light sleeper, only once in a while it manages to go away, in the waking state we are talking of. And so, the teacher has to be careful, because when the teacher lulls the Pramata to sleep, the person himself goes to sleep, herself goes to sleep. See, these are the occupational hazards. Yeah. Very enjoyable hazards. Because the teacher of Vedanta always likes to live on the edge because of these excitements. Yeah. So many things. So much fun. Yeah. How to put the knower to sleep, the one who is identified with the knower, without putting the whole person to sleep. Yeah. That itself keeps the teacher awake. Yeah. So this is a very fine operation, very sukshma, very subtle, very fine, very detail oriented. And the Pramata doesn't know what has made me go to sleep. And what does the Pramata do? The Pramata just dozes off for a bit. And then the akhandakara vritti deployed along with the sleeping pill. The sleeping pill is for the pramata, the one who has identified with the knower. The akhandakara vritti, this vritti of non-duality, is then deployed because the pramata is taken away gently. Because you cannot know yourself as an object. But the tendency, the pramata digs in wanting to know itself as an object. It is determined to grasp itself as an object. So it has to be removed. So that knowledge which knocks off the knower, this is what is called akhandakara vritti. Is a thought form permanent or temporary? Temporary. Abba, thank God. Yeah. Otherwise I would have been permanently depressed. So, thought form is temporary, correct? Yes. So thought form is temporary because just now you thought of, flower, and then you thought of, book, and then you thought of glasses, then you thought of something else, then you saw something on the wall and thought of that. And so the thought form is eminently temporary. Then the question arises, how can a temporary thought form deliver the eternal? How is that even possible? Isn't this a rank paradox? It is a paradox, all right, but how does it work? How can something that is so temporary deliver the permanent? Because it self-destructs. And if it destroys itself, then what about how can it carry the knowledge of the eternal? Here you can use the word eternal, one of the few places. Itself being non-eternal, how can itself being momentary, how can it give the knowledge of that limitless, timeless wholeness which I am? It is just impossible. It is not impossible. It would be impossible, yes. But now remember, the pramata who thinks this has gone to bed. That's why we have to put him to bed. Put her to bed. Then it would be impossible if something has to be known as the object. Then it is impossible. Because without knower, how can you know? And how can that, which is the knowledge of, which is in the form of a temporary thought, deliver something eternal? Not possible. But here, that eternal, that nitya happens to be you already. A you that you don't yet know, a you that is in the process of knowing, a you that is actually wanting to know this. So that Adi, which we discussed last time, that nature of all light is already there. It's under the bushel of ragadveshas, hiding the light under the bushel. There is some term, there is a phrase. So it is under the, it is like a glowing, it's a glow that is self-shining. That self-shining eye can neither be denied nor can it be, not seen. It has to be seen because it is everything. It is you. But for want of a means of knowledge, number one, and because it is buried under ragadveshas, it is not known. And because it is not known, it is mistaken to be something else. I am an idiot, nobody loves me, I had a hard life, I'm still having a hard life, and I'm just, I'm upset. I've had so many difficulties. So this is the identification. The mistaken level of the mistaken identification happens because I don't know myself as the self-effulgent isotope of light. I don't know myself as this glorious being who is the truth of everything, who happens to be as though living or dwelling, the indwelling this body-mind-sense complex. Because the body-mind-sense complex becomes more real than what is indwelling it because of the misidentification. So therefore, the timed thought form can indeed convey the timeless because the timeless doesn't need to be objectified. It's not an object, it is the very subject. That is why it can be paradoxically conveyed because there's no other way to convey it. But for that, the pramata has to be sleeping. Yeah, the pramata has to be displaced. Yeah. And the pramata can never be displaced. It is here to stay. And you don't want to displace it really, because otherwise how will you know things in the universe? I have attended Vedanta, therefore I am a zombie. I have put my pramata is dead. So I walk out of class and I just don't know anything, Yeah. And sometimes people do this, and once it was a little scary actually. When I was a child, I went to see some lady who was supposed, I don't know her name, don't know if she's in her body or still or whatever. Somewhere I went to see this holy, lady, some Ammaji, called mother, and in a village. We went and she would neither talk nor she would walk. And to me, who was 8 years old at that time, seems like she was a mess. Because, I'm telling you from the standpoint of the 8-year-old child, because somebody had to feed her and half of the food would dribble out of the mouth because she was unable, and then they would scoop it all up and put it back in her mouth, and again she's just drooling. And people are thronging because she's supposedly in a permanent trance, in a permanent trance of oneness, correct? And to me, who was 8-year-old, I could not separate it from a permanent vegetative state. Because everything somebody has to do. Somebody has to bathe her, dress her, and, give her food. And nothing else, but she was like that. So therefore, it's not like the pramata has to permanently be dead. We have to learn to suspend it. And here again is a kind of an exercise in growing shishyattvam, shishyahood, and how to how to grow into into that subtle student who grasps everything versus another hypothetical student who does not grasp anything. How to grow into a sattvic student. So one becomes sensitive to see how the teacher is both hushing the pramata, rockabye pramata, and also delivering the vritti, correct? And one can help oneself by learning to hush the inner pramata. Suspend the pramata for the time that one is in the classroom. Yeah. Then it gets easier. Not on the teacher. Don't think that I'm saying this because I want to have an easy time. Gets easier for you. Because really the pramata and the ahankara likes to be in charge. And if the ahankara can be trained to take care of the pramata, wow, nice. Then the vritti really goes right to the heart. And all this I'm saying to prepare us to greet the verse number 3, 4, which is all about this. Which is all about learning to maximize what one is studying in the class. To not go like a zombie, sit there and say, oh, if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. I don't know what to do. Yeah. So here is how I help myself to accelerate the internalization and the assimilation of the knowledge, and for which certain precise upasanas and sadhanas are going to be given, starting verse number 3, 4, etc. And I have to prepare for this. How? By learning to take care of my pramata. So far we have learned how to suspend the ragadveshas in the classroom, correct? And to just sit and listen in a focused way. And now we are going to go to a more subtle level of shishyatvam by learning to suspend the pramata for the time being so that the vritti can easily be received. Okay? And so these verses talk about that. This particular one talks about that, especially 1 and 2. And right now we are on 1, talks about that in a very specific and a very deep way. And Adi Shankara's Bhashya, which we are going to read now, is going to cement this whole understanding. So, introducing, all this is just the introduction. The introducing this mantra, Adi Shankara says the following. What does he say? Now we'll be able to understand the introduction. He says, Arupam sadaksharam kena prakarena vigneyam iti uchyate. How to internalize this akshara? What is this akshara? That which is not perishing. Yeah. That which is not perishing, how to internalize? Kena prakarena, through which means. Yeah. Some people are saying they cannot hear.
Can you move that ball over here?
Is it better now? Can you hear now? Is the audio better? Can somebody show some signs of life, please? Now too loud, you reduce your own volume. Yeah, you reduce your volume on your computer, and if you still cannot hear, you log out, log back in, or go to live stream. Okay, wonderful. So introducing this verse, he says, Kena prakarena arupam sad aksharam vigneyam iti uchyate. How to vigneyam? See, jnanam means knowledge, right? And sometimes vijnanam means the knowledge that is well ascertained, well understood, well assimilated. What is the difference between knowledge and a knowledge that is well ascertained, well understood, well assimilated? What's the difference? Huh?
One is something that you incorporate in your own life.
Yeah. And to incorporate it and to operate from that ascertainment and that fulfillment requires a little more effort on part of the student. A very subtle effort. And that subtle effort is that, learning the melodious tunes of the lullaby from the teacher to put the pramada to rest. For the time being of the operation of the akhandakara vritti in the shravanam process, in the process of listening. And there is something to do, because otherwise one feels, sometimes one feels like one has reached a plateau of listening. Like I am sick of classes. The same thing again and again. Oh, I have been there. I have done that. The same examples, the same things. Atma, Atma, Atma. Brahman, Brahman, Brahman. A is equal to B. Yeah, and this we have heard many, many times. And that hearing is just like a buffalo standing in the rain. What happens when the buffalo stands in the rain? Nothing. That's the point. So, that plateau is reached. And why that plateau is reached? Because really the Shravanam is always fun, and it has to be something that is always sought after and something that is always, what's the word for it? Always delighted in. And if I have stopped delighting in it, or if I'm not able to see its use in my life, what do I have to do? I have to see this subtlety here. So it could be, there are many reasons why the plateau is reached, but here we are talking of one particular reason addressed very subtly by Adi Shankaracharya through the word Vigneyam, not Gneyam. And every little suffix, every little prefix has to be carefully understood when operated by Adi Shankaracharya. Because Shankara is very frugal with his words. So we here means, something other than just jnanam. And what is this? It is a jnanam that is internalized. And the internalizing process, the guru can help to a certain extent, but after that it is incumbent upon me to what should I say, accelerate this learning by learning how to hush the pramata. But how do I hush the pramata? By putting the sakshi in front. Who is the sakshi? The observer, the witness. We can't let witless operate. We have to let the witness be in place. And when the witness is in place, what happens? When the pramata rises, the witness can take care of the pramata and say, no, not now. Because the second guessing of the teaching happens in many ways. Is this really true? Is this happened? I have heard this before. I already know. All those things are put to rest for a deeper engagement with the Shravanam. And then when you do that, the Mananam also, the subsequent Mananam in the form of the meditation, in the form of understanding what is being said later on, and then, to talk about yourself, to engage in a dialogue with yourself with regard to doubts, etc., becomes very easy. Very easy. So the Mananam quality also changes. He's going to talk about that. And it's very beautiful. And so, Katham Vijneyam, Kena Prakarena Vijneyam, how to internalize this, this further, this knowledge, and how to deal to deal with the pramata, to have a deeper level of engagement, is put in this verse, Avissannihitam, and it's a Mahavakya. This mantra is a Mahavakya for reasons that we have seen. Do you want me to repeat it? You remember, right? Repeat. Okay. So, Avissannihitam, meaning that which is in the form of all light. Guhacharam. Where is it? It is Sannihitam. It is very well, what is that? Living, being. Where is it being? In the heart. Guhacharam. In the buddhi. It is moving in the buddhi. This unmoving light is seen as though moving in the buddhi. It is known as Avihi. Nama means it is famous as Avihi by the ancient sages, etc. Mahat Padam Atra Etat Samarpitam. It is the ultimate goal. Mahat Padam means, very quickly, ultimate goal in which everything as though is located. And what are the things that are located? Everything that moves, ejat, everything that breathes, everything that blinks, everything that doesn't blink. This is what all the things are as though located in this avi. Come out of this avi, sustained by the avi, go back to this avi. And yad etad, that which is this avi, please, O disciples, please know this, which is the only thing to be chosen, which is the only thing to be prayed for, which is the only thing to want, and which is very different from ordinary forms of knowledge. That is the translation. Okay? Now we go to the Bhashya. Avihi prakasham sannihitam vagadi upadhibhihi jvalati bhrajati iti shrutyantarat shabdadin anupalabhamana vat avabhasate. So, what is this avi? He just says prakasham, light. What kind of a light? The light that goes through the various orifices in the form of speech, hearing, seeing, the function of, the olfactory nerves, touching, etc. All the sense organs and the organs of actions operate because of this avi. So this non-moving light as though gives life to various physiological functions and the means of knowledge that are operated through the sense organs and the organs of action. It gives life to those actions without itself moving. That's why charati, guhacharam, guhayam charati iti guhacharaha. So that which moves means what? I move, right? The body moves. So I think the avi is also moving. Yeah. But the unmoving avi, the timeless avi, what does it do? it manages all the timed activities by as though taking the shape of the movement without really going anywhere. It appears to move while really not going anywhere. It appears to do things while really not doing anything. It appears to see in one instance and hear in the other while it is unseeing and unhearing. You see what I'm saying? This is the contradiction. And this is why the pramata cannot be, operating right now. If the pramata is operating right now, you'll feel like running away from class. The knower cannot fathom all this. How can it move and not move? How can it, hear and not hear? How can it see and not see simultaneously? This is why that subtle way of learning to tell the pramata, shh, not now. But I don't want to go to sleep. Okay, here is some popcorn. Watch this movie. Yeah, we have to just, find ways of managing the inner pramata. Then then that kind of a heavy boredom, which becomes which becomes our staple diet in the Jagat. In the Jagat, nothing can hold my interest for too long. Correct? I go to the mall and boring, been there, done that. Restaurants, how many restaurants can you go to? Even in a place like San Francisco, which has, even if you eat every day in a restaurant, you will not, after 1 year, you will still have, somebody said, that you will still not have exhausted all the restaurants. Even in a place like that, New York, if you go, every corner there are eateries. But how? You get bored, you get tired. And this ennui, which is the French word for boredom, everything sounds better in French. And so, it's a sophisticated boredom. That's why I used French. So boredom of the sophisticated, cultivated jiva with a lot of I'm warming up. A lot of cultivated tastes and lot of cultivated, desires, lot of cultivated everything. As a result, is bored of everything. That's right. Always bored, always tired, always, sick of life. How much to do? What? I'm always seeking some new thrill, new pill, new thrill, something or the other to get me out of this boredom. And here, this Mahavakya says, you are the pill, you are the thrill. Oh, I am the pill that I seek? Yes. I am the thrill that I seek? Yes. What do I have to do? You have to learn to chill. That's all. So the chilling the pramata is what is required here. Otherwise, avi is not understood. Avi becomes some kind of a, abstraction. Avi is not the abstraction. The pramata has to be abstracted from this process to keep the Shravanam going. That is the thing. That is the key here. And so, avis sannihitam. Where is it? It is right here. And then it is that light here means knowledge. Here you can say jnanam. So that jnanam is what is at stake here. That jnanam, all knowledge, that which is the truth of all cognition, from which all cognition of objects happens, from which the subject cognition also happens as a self-knowledge of oneself as avi, I exist. That is avi. I know I am. Because when I say, are you here? What do you say? Yes. How do you know? I know I am. So when you say I am, you're not just commenting upon your existence. The fact that you're commenting upon your existence means, what are you saying? I know that I exist. This is what is avi. And when do you exist? Now. Are you existing now? 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 And we can keep on saying now till the rest of the class. And then what happens? Nothing happens. The now alone remains. So that now is timeless. So when I say I exist now, it is Satchidananda. It's a self-proclaimed Satchidananda. I exist, Sat. I know I am, Chit. And I know I am now. And that now has no duration, Ananta, Ananda. that now itself is forever. And what I seek in life is forever, is the forever. What I want is the forever, and the forever happens to be right now. Beautiful. So this is what is to be understood. And to understand this, a metaphor is deployed, and not even a metaphor, a technique is deployed. And what is the technique in the mantra that is explained by Adi Shankara is that unmoving it appears to move. It doesn't talk, but what does it do? It makes the tongue talk. It makes the tongue bite its own words. That is also avi. It makes one say whatever one regrets, avi. It says some wonderful words, avi. It chants a mantra, avi. And then it second guesses itself, avi. It says, I am finite, that infinite avi. It's a bunch of paradox, because non-moving it appears to move, non-talking it appears to talk, because all the functions, all the physiological functions, the biological functions, the mental functions, emotional functions, everything is conducted by this avi, which seems to flow to various things. Because it is limitless and infinite, it does everything without doing anything. Just like water, flows to fill up whatever gaps there are there. So too this avi is like a liquid light that flows everywhere and everything without being any particular thing. It's a shape shifter, this avi, because it is shapeless. And so that is what is pointed out here. Vagadi upadhibhi or something like that. Vagadi upadhibhi jvalati bhrajati. So in every cognition, it shines. Because in every cognition, even of the, in every cognition, what kind of cognition? Even of objects. When I say, I know black hole. When you say that, that means what? That shine of that knowledge belongs to avi. It shines as the truth of every cognition. Black hole comes and goes, the object goes, because in every cognition there is subject and object. The subject, which is the knower, is invariable. The objects keep changing. Got it? Yeah. Even if you don't get it, at this point you have to say yes. Yeah. Because it will be repeated again. Don't worry. So he quotes another Shruti. What else can he do to, exemplify this further? He thinks that if he quotes another Shruti, it will become clear. He hopes that you have studied the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And he says, Vagadi upadhibhir jvalati bhrajati iti shrutyantarat. And so he quotes this to show that all the Upanishads, no matter which one you study, is one and the same, and they are all having a commitment to talk about this avi alone. And then what? Anupalabha manavat avabhasate. What does it do? It as though makes everything available for objectification. Because it's the same light, the light of the subject that cognizes this, that sheds light on the subject and on the objects. That is what is being said here. Darshana, Shravana, Manana, Vijnanad, Upadhi, Dharmaihi, Avirbhutam San, Lakshate, Hridi, Sarva Praninam. And this sentence is very laden and a very loaded sentence. Because it has two meanings. One, we'll take the regular meaning that is found in all the translations everywhere. What is the meaning? Darshana means vision, seeing, Shravana, hearing, Manana, thinking, Vijnana, knowing. So these are all the various upadhis. I thought upadhi was a container. Yes, the body itself is an upadhi, but then there are upadhis within upadhis here. And what is the upadhi? The eyes are the upadhi for sight, and the ears are the upadhi for hearing, and then the mind is the upadhi for thinking, and the intellect is the upadhi for knowing. Correct? So it shines through these various upadhis, and what does it do? It makes sure that all the things that you want to know, because it takes on the dharma, it takes on the attributes of the upadhis, and then it, it operates from the heart of every being, all the beings. Heart means here the buddhi, the heart of the matter is what we are talking about. So it operates from the buddhi, the intellect of every being, while taking on the attributes while itself is attributeless. So how can it take on the attribute if it is attributeless? Because it as though takes on the attribute, makes that cognition happen, and then because it is infinite and limitless, it can take on many attributes at the same time without it be that light of consciousness, without it being affected by anything else. This is the straightforward meaning. This is what you will find in the translation if you ever find a Bhashya translation. But this is Adi Shankara's Bhashya, correct? And there is a subtle meaning, so beautiful, that is in keeping with the introduction, a very long introduction that I gave earlier. And what is that? He already said Shrutyantarat, meaning through a different Shruti he quoted. So now we have to see where have we heard Darshana, Shravana, Manana, where have we heard that? Thoughts? Atma va are drashtavyah, shrotavyah, mantavyah, vijignyasitavyah, nididhyasitavyah. Where have we heard that? Atma va are drashtavyah, shrotavyah, mantavyah, nididhyasitavyah. No Chandogya, no. Atma Bodha, no. It's a Upanishad sentence. Yeah. So let's cut out all the other possibilities. Yeah, it is something we have done in one of the retreats or whatever. It is a dialogue between who? Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Yajnavalkya is wanting to go away and lead a life, go away to the Himalayas or whatever mountain top that was there at that time, and in the thing, and go off to lead a life of a sannyasin. But that cannot happen until you take permission from the significant other. And usually the significant other will not give permission. Yeah. Two people have to give permission if you want to let go of everything. One is the mother and the significant other. Yeah. And if the mother says no, then also it is not a possibility. And if the significant other says no, then also it is not a possibility. So we don't know about the mother of Yajnavalkya, whether she was in the world or not. But we do know about the significant other, that he loved very much, but was wanting, had felt he had outgrown the marriage and the relationship. A scary thought for many people. And then wanted to just go away, be by himself, and, what is that called? Soak more in the words of the Shastra by oneself, without being disturbed by the daily expectations and duties and roles. And, then that is okay. But if one is not ready to soak, nothing happens, correct? So he decides to go off by himself. And what does he do? He has to take permission of Maitreyi. So the section of the Upanishad opens with his desire, and he says, this is what I feel like doing. I feel like going away. And what does Maitreyi say? On my dead body. No, she doesn't say that. She says, she's puzzled. She says, and he also says, I have made you financially very rich. Because Yajnavalkya was a very rich sage. How do you get to be a rich sage? What you do is you enter into dialogue with other people, and then when you when your knowledge is so firmly established that you win all the dialogues, they have to give you everything they own, or a lot of things they have to give you. And then, so accumulating all that, he had become a very wealthy man. In another portion of the same Upanishad, he goes to have he's invited to have a dialogue with somebody, and he's gone with a few of his students, and he tells the students, it's already 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they reached. He tells the student, don't stay for the debate. Take all their cows which are in the pasture. I mean, the debate has not even been won. Yeah. Get the key for the stables and the pastures and drive all the cows home, because otherwise you won't reach the ashram by night, and I'll finish the debate and come. Because, animals go slowly, they get distracted on the way. The students need to keep on saying, hup, 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 and take them home. Take them back to the ashram. And shocking as it is, you're a guest of somebody and you say, crack open their safe and take all their belongings, even before the debate has been won. How rude. But here, the king himself gives the key to the stables, meaning he just wants to lose to Yajnavalkya and become the disciple, because that was the acceptable way. When you lose the debate, you become the disciple. Why not just finally go and why not just say, I'm your disciple? Well, that's no fun. Yeah. Because if you say, I'm your disciple, in those days you give up everything that you have, So that's how it was. So you either willingly give up, but that's no fun. And also socially, it becomes, and they used to do this particularly, especially if they were rich men or kings, to set an example. Because the king just going and, falling at the feet of a jnani and saying, I am your disciple, is no fun. Yeah, no fun at all. But if the king arranges a debate and loses the debate in front of all the people, and then it sets an example, that, that this is the way to go. See, even the king is doing this, that this is the only thing in life. That's how they used to have these debates. And also, the third reason, this is my extrapolation, is that sometimes the ego is there, correct? Yeah, so the ego wants to have the satisfaction of losing, and then only it will shut up. The ego wants to be defeated. And then, because it is not willingly ready to surrender, so it wants to be defeated, and then it will shut up. So then what happened? Yajnavalkya, he had so much cattle. Cattle means you have to have enough land. You have to have enough paricharikas, sevaks to rub down the cattle, take them, all this, and you have to pay them. All this is a sign of wealth. And so he told Maitreyi that, you're a very rich lady now, because I have left you a lot of money. And she asks, what you are leaving, namely the money, is that going to give me what you are going after? Being an honest man, he says, na vittena, vittena nasha asti amritatvasya. That immortality which I am seeking to affirm for myself is not to be got with the riches of the world. Then she says, how can you leave this and go after something else? What you are going after, I also want. How can you not see that I want the same thing that you want? So you have to teach me what you know before you go. She puts a condition. And then he begins the teaching, and the first line is, Atma vai are. Vai are becomes va are. Atma va are. Are means honey. Yeah. Atma va are. Drashtavyaha. Atma, my dear one, my dearest one, has to be virtually seen, as good as seen, has to be known as though you actually see it, because the seeing, we are so attached to seeing. We prioritize the sight more than anything else. Atma va are drashtavyaha. So what drashtavyaha means, must be seen, just like veditavyaha, dve vidye veditavye, that tavya. Tavya means must be. It has a injunction of an order. And we get few orders in the Upanishad, but this is one tavya that we cannot bypass. Atma vai are drashtavyaha, has to be seen, has to be known as good as seeing. So what should I do in order to that? Darshanartham kim kartavyam. What should I do in order to see this? Shrotavyaha, must go to a teacher and listen. Then if I still don't get it, what should I do? Because that Shravanam is enough, correct? Shravanam is complete and enough, but if Shravanam doesn't give me what I want, that means there are certain blocks, the Pramata will not shut up. So these blocks are there, what should I do? Mantavyaha, meditate upon it, clear your doubts, go to the teacher repeatedly, listen again and again, and then standing in the shower, think about things, because sometimes the hot water on the head, brings the brain cells to life. Yeah, and certain wonderful, ideas come. And you think they are your own ideas, but actually it's already what you have studied is shining in a different way. So mantavyaha, yes, I get it, all the doubts are removed, but I still feel like I'm back to my same old ways. I can't give up addictive behaviors, I can't be what I am, I know I'm Brahman, but I'm behaving like a jiva. What to do? Nididhyasitavyaha. Nididhyasitavyaha. May you contemplate on the words of the Shastra that you already know, because what you don't know cannot be an object of contemplation. And here the object of contemplation is the words of the Shastra that you already know, that you regurgitate like the cow that has hurriedly eaten the grass. Because the cow is not terribly bright, and then you put it out to pasture, it doesn't know how much time it is there. It's hungry and God has given 4 stomachs, and so it just eats quite, nibbles. And then still the farmer hasn't come to take it back to the stable. Then what does it do? Sits under a tree because it has not tasted anything. It just what is called ruminates. It brings back the grass and then chews it again. That's when it extracts the wheat grass juice. That's when it sits down with a blender to make a smoothie, of a healthy smoothie, to smoothen the jagged edges, of one's understanding. This is what it is. So just like the cow regurgitates the grass and chews it back and assimilates the grass, similarly, the one compartment of the mind that has hurriedly, because I don't know how many classes I have, this is so nice, this is what I have been always wanting, and then let me listen, and then after listening, the same words are ruminated over in the spare time. Kalam nayet nirantaram, meaning always spend your time like that. And until then, be engaged in activity, because an idle mind is the Pramata's workshop. Pramata gets into trouble in the idle mind. So either you engage in activity that helps the Shuddhi, that helps purify the Ragadveshas, or if you are able to sit without activity, then sit, contemplating on the mantras of the Upanishad, so that you can, that habitual orientations are uprooted. It's not that you don't know, but your actions and your behavior is more in tandem with what you know. This is what Yajnavalkya gives as the teaching. And here we cannot but, recall this, because it's too much to miss. Pratima got it. Yes, very nice. So Yajnavalkya Maitreyi dialogue. So here it is too obvious to miss. So he says, because he had already said this, that Vagadi Upadhibihi Jvalati, he had already said that which is lighted up by all the functions of the mind and the speech and the organs of actions, etc. He had already said that. What is the need to say Darshana Shravana Manana Vijnanadi Upadhi Dharmaihi Avirbhutam San Lakshate Hridi Sarva Praninam? Because here, what is the reason? It's not a repetition. Here, on the subtle level, he says he's either elucidating what was said earlier, and also at the same time subtly saying that even when you're sitting in the class and you're doing Shravanam, that Avi is itself operating. Who is listening? Avi is listening. Avi is listening in the form of the enlightened Pramata. in the form of an enlightened ahankara, sans the pramata, the avi is listening. The avi has become a purified listener, and the avi has the one that has suspended or dismissed the pramata right now. And what is the pramata if it were to come into being? That is also avi. And then when I am sitting and doing mananam after Shravanam, who is in charge? Avi. That all-knowing Avi is alone helping me to know through these various ways. Darshana, Shravana. Darshana means the desire to know here. Shravana, the means of knowing, which is the listening to the words of the Vedanta. And then Manana, the meditation that I go through. Then what? Vijnana, then final assimilation of the knowledge is also happening ironically because of the avi that has not a whit of self-ignorance, not a whiff of self-ignorance. That all-knowing avi is the one that is as though operating the pramana. The all-knowing avi is the one as though becoming the source of the operation. The all-knowing avi as though is the recipient of the operation of the pramana. So it is pramata, prameya and pramana, all three in one, without being any of them. If you ask it, are you pramata? It says no. Come on. Are you then prameya, that which is to be known? No. Then are you then pramana, the means of knowledge? No. But then who is the means of knowledge? Me. Who is the knower? Me. Who is the known? Me. How can it be that you are all these things but none of these things? Because I am that formless akshara. Here, that's why arupam, it was given in the introduction that arupam has to be, anuvrittified here, has to be brought down here. Yeah, arupam means itself formless, as though manifests in various forms, upholds all the forms. And here we are talking of the internal forms of knowing through the Shravana, Manana, etc. Knowing what? Even this Vedanta. So the avi knows itself by pretending to have ignorance. Very interesting. By pretending to have ignorance and then pretending to lend a ear. Okay, I'll listen. To what? The glory of myself. I, who is not at all, full of ignorance, I, who doesn't have a whiff of self-ignorance, will as though listen to myself and then clear the air of misunderstanding and misidentification with various, finite forms. Which again, by the way, I alone embody and I enter those very forms and give them life. And so here, Sarva Praninam is given. All the beings have the ability for Shravanam, Mananam and Vijnanam. The Nididhyasanam here is Vijnanam because it's that oneness, that assimilation. So all the beings, even dog, dog does Shravanam. Moti, come here. All Indian dogs are called Moti. Moti, come here. It is like Rover or whatever, the Indian version. Yeah, Moti, come here. Moti is cocking its ears. Moti is doing Shravanam, correct? Yeah. Bad boy, Moti. And Moti goes like this, Moti feels guilty. He doesn't know what he has done. So maybe for a split second, he thinks about it. Wonder why this, what is that? Can opening, loving, cuddling human being is temporarily angry with me. Moti thinks, correct? So we cannot say Moti contemplates, but if Moti contemplates, it's when is the next meal coming, when is the next hug coming, correct? This is Moti's life, right? So Moti also in a very inhibited way, the dog, the cat is has the capacity in a very inhibited way for contemplation. And even though I'm told that the dogs listen to my classes and they sit with their owners and do Shravanam, they are just there to be cuddled, that's all. They just go where the owner goes. They do not have the capacity for real Shravanam. They do not have neither do they have the capacity for Mananam and Nididhyasanam like we have seen the meanings of. Correct? But then why does he say Sarva Praninam? To underscore the fact that the human upadhi is special and this alone can do the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam what is needed to gain this arupa avi, this formless avi, what is needed, the methodology of gaining this avi is also given. So this hidden meaning here is called Gudha Abhisandhi. Gudha Abhisandhi. It's a technique of what is that folding in, here something other than what is being talked about. And here, namely, what is being folded in, the hidden meaning, is the methodology to excavate, through the ragadveshas, through the pramata, through all the various notions and the harm and the fears and the pains and the sorrows. The excavation is happening through the tools of darshana, manana, shravana, vijnanam. So whether I am engaged in the laukika, the worldly pursuit of hearing, seeing, etc., or the pursuits which are Vedanta based pursuits of knowing this avi, the avi alone operates. The avi that doesn't need shravanam becomes a shrota. The avi that doesn't need to that doesn't need to teach becomes the becomes the teacher. That's what the whole thing is. The avi that is self-ignorance says, please adhihi bhagavo brahma, teach me about Brahman. The avi becomes the student, avi becomes the teacher, avi becomes the vritti, avi becomes the excavator, avi becomes the one that is revealed, avi becomes the revealer, avi becomes the means of revealing while not being in essence any one of them. Got it? Yeah. Just say yes. Yes. Now, lakshyate. Lakshyate means it is understood, not that it is seen. It is understood as itself. Yad etat avihi brahma sannihitam samyak sthitam hridi guhacharam nama. So where is this thing which is understood, lakshyate? It's indicated. Where is this indicated by the teaching? It is guhacharam nama. It is famous as that which is moving around in the heart, which is there in the buddhi. Guha is buddhi for reasons we have seen many times, because it houses ignorance. It is dark and dank like a cave full of bats of doubt and the forests of despair, growing. And the stalactites and stalagmites of self-sabotage. So that is why it is called cave. And so, sannihitam samyak sthitam hridi guhacharam nama, meaning in this avi alone that is gained through shravanam, mananam, etc., is what is already there, in its original form, in its, essenceless, what is that, formless form. That is what is avi. Guhayam charati darshana shravanadi prakaraihi guhacharam iti prakhyatam. Prakhyatam means it is famous. Why is it famous? It is famous because it is in every act of listening, seeing, hearing. It alone operates. Without it, there is no hearing, no seeing. So therefore, it is world famous, Jagat famous. In fact, it's the only thing that there is. It's the only thing that is famous. So if you are a scientist and then you discover something, did you discover? No, avi. Avi gains the credit. You take home the award. But avi gains the credit. Actually, the award belongs to avi. And similarly, now you listen to Vedanta Shastra and you say, yes, I got it. I am avi. And then what? Avi still gets the credit. Yeah. So whether it is laukika or, adhyatmika, whatever it is, spiritual or mundane, whatever you are studying, and whether you are pursuing yourself or objects, whether the pursuit is that of the subject or the object, nonetheless, it is avi alone that shines, And this as though not knowing, which becomes as though knowing, then all you're left is a as though headache, that's all, Because the headache of saying, I don't know, but that I don't know is disappeared with the darshana, shravana, manana, and then what you are left with is avi alone. And then what? And so, what is this avi is given now in the next word. Mahat sarva mahatvat padam padyate sarvena iti sarva padartha aspadatvat. Mahat means great. Everything is great, correct? Yeah. How are you doing? Great. How was the movie? Great. How was the ice cream? Great. How was the marriage? Not so great. So this great is overused, especially in American culture. So much so, it begins to grate upon the nerves. The number of times we keep saying great, 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 great. So everything is great. What is not great? Everything is great. And then what is this Avi? Great. Mahat. Come on. Don't you think we need a special term for this Avi? What is this all the time saying great, great, great? Yeah. Here it's not great. It is the only thing. Mahat here must not be understood as great. What Adi Shankara says, Mahat means the ultimate. The ultimate and the only, the absolute, which is Avi, which is myself. And what is it? Mahat is not used by itself. It is used in the compound with Padam. Mahat cha asau, Padam cha. Mahat cha tat, Padam cha. So that which is great means ultimate. And that which is also Padam, Padyate. Padyate means that which is sought after. Padyate iti Padam, the goal. It is the ultimate goal of all beings. Even the dog and the cat are mumukshus. They want freedom. Yeah. They cannot be jignasus. But every being in the universe feels tied up, bound, and wants freedom, whether they know it or not, whether they woof it or meow it, or whether they can't even, express it. But still every being in the world is a mumukshu. Feels tied up. Especially with a dog you can understand. But because sometimes they are tied up. But even metaphorically, it feels bound. That's why it wants to keep escaping. That's why they do all kinds of things that they just want to. Sometimes you see these beings and you know that they want to escape, get out of this body. It's very, very clear. And you can see their frustration. Whether it's in the act of chasing the tail, And chasing the tail is important because that is the first sign of seeking oneself. If we look through it, maybe it's reading too much, but let's have fun, So that's the first sign of mumukshutvam. The animals, sometimes they suddenly go crazy. So they'll be sitting just quietly. I've seen sometimes, they'll be sitting quietly. That's why, when we had pets in this household, they had to be tethered up for the class. Because you didn't know how they would behave. They would be sitting very quietly and suddenly they would run around. Suddenly they would chase the tail. What is that? What is that restlessness? And you ask them, they say, we will also, if they could talk, they will say, I don't know what happened. I just suddenly felt like biting a leg. That's all, Yeah, that's all. And I bit because I'm programmed. If they could talk, that's what they would say. So suddenly they just go away, suddenly they just go wild, and that itself shows that there is some restlessness that is there. Some restlessness is there, and so every being is a mumukshu. And most of them, in the form of animals, etc., are programmed to not be mumukshus. That is the frustration. They have to just go on without any free will. And in the human life is the only place where I have the free will to interrogate and inquire into this mumukshutvam. Yes, we are not going to have a break. We are going to go for 15 minutes and stop. Yeah, so hang in there. So we are, in the human being alone has the capacity for interrogating and inquiring into what? Into this I, into this mumuksha, into this desire for freedom. And graduate this flame of mumuksha. First the flame is held so that it doesn't, all the winds of all other pursuits don't disturb it. And then that flame is taken to the teacher. By that time it's wanting to go out most of the time. And then, the student says, I'm tired of keeping it alive. Please take it. And the teacher takes it. And the teacher makes it into a conflagration. That is what the thing is. So, but you have to be available for the teaching. If you're available for the teaching, miracles happen. So therefore, it all goes back to what was said earlier, refining the pramata. Refining means what? making it shut up when at command. That is what the whole thing is. Learning to work with the pramata and to shut it up is a very important thing. So this jignasa is there, even though all beings want freedom. The dog also, if it could pray, it would say, Kathamaham shanti meshyami, woof woof. When will I get this shanti of not being dogged by my life? Yeah, this is what the whole thing. And, but in the human being, I have that ability to express this restlessness, Even though many lifetimes, even as a human being, I'm chasing my own tail, tailbone. And then, and many times I'm also running around restlessly from malls to balls. How do you spell mall? M-A-U-L, yes, yeah. That by which I am mauled. That's called mall, okay? Yeah. This is the beauty of Sanskrit and English together. So, this is what the whole thing is. So that restlessness, I also have. And for many lifetimes perhaps, this jiva has run around restlessly seeking for God knows what. But here coming to Vedanta, and that too coming to Pujya Swamiji, that, this very exalted lineage, this is the final resting place. Ayyo, I'm still young, don't give me such heart attacks. I hope to lead a very good life. Final resting place, not of the body. Final resting place of that restless quest. Yeah. Every other place is a questing place. This alone is the resting place. That is why, we have the name for this ashram, Arsha, not Jnana Gurukulam, Arsha Vijnana Gurukulam. Vijnana means well ascertained knowledge. So everybody studying here will definitely, this is Pujya Swamiji's Sankalpa, will definitely assimilate the knowledge. That's the whole thing. That is the blessing of this name. And so here, the thing is that everybody is searching. I'm also searching. But my search has now fine-tuned into this. Because the desire for learning, learning means vidya, correct? Vidya is knowledge. So, vidyanande brahmanandah. This is what is to be understood. The last 3 chapters of Panchadashi, we have already seen the 15th chapter. Some other time we'll see the 13th and 14th. It will be nice. So, Vidyanande Brahmanandah. So there he very clearly, justifies this and very clearly proves, Vidyaranya, the author, proves without a shadow of doubt in the verses in the 13th and 14th chapter how whatever knowledge I desire, so many times people are fond of learning. They want to learn how to cook, they want to learn how to drive some semi, that semi? Yeah, that big, 18-wheeled truck, 20-wheeled truck. And how to mountaineering. They want to learn mountaineering, they want to learn cooking, they want to learn all these things, that spider, bungee cord jumping, skydiving, and all these things they want to learn. And behind that desire to learn, whatever it is, dance, music, cooking, etc., whatever you want to learn, you really want to know yourself. Because all those things satisfy, but then they don't satisfy ultimately. Because when you get good at something, you always say, I am good, but not as good as that one. Now let me become as good as that one. Then I become as good as that one, then somebody else will always be there who will be better than me. Correct? And so that is the whole thing. And even this great opera singer, who is not now no more, this Pavarotti, very interesting, because in India, pav means bread, roti also means bread. So in India, if you ask an Indian to say Pavarotti, they will say pav roti. Yeah. So this Pavarotti was asked, he was interviewed, and I think it was by Oprah, I don't remember. And in this interview, he said actually he was very sad because he could not become the kind of maestro that he wanted to become, really. You see, this is, nobody can come around him. Yeah, he can crack all the glasses in your house. That was the voice. And even in the interview, he was told to crack a glass, and he cracked it, crystal glass, he cracked it, and he still felt, when he saw the pieces, he said, no, it should have been a clean cut. But my voice was not good today. You see? So that insecurity doesn't leave, no matter what you pursue and how big you become, you can get all these, Now in India, there is a lot of awards for sale because all these scientists and the artists are giving back their awards. Because there is some controversy and they feel like, the government is not listening to them. So all the awards are being returned. So supposing even if you were to get some of these awards, still that satisfaction is not there because there is a higher award and there is a higher reward. And then one keeps, so any mode of learning you pursue, it doesn't satisfy ultimately. It satisfies for the time being. You feel good, you feel whatever. And I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue all other things. You should only, keep coming to class no matter how many times a day we keep having them. That's not what I'm saying. But we have to prioritize the pursuit. If you make Vedanta the main pursuit, the other pursuits become enjoyable. If you put Vedanta as the last pursuit, the other pursuits will make you just huff and puff. That's all. Make you exhausted. Because if the pursuit is not exhaustive, it makes you exhausted. That's all it is. Or kuch nahi hai. That's all it is. And so therefore, if we have to do Shirshasana. Shirshasana means stand on the head. Standing on the head is very recommended because blood flow comes to the head. And blood flow means better thinking. Yeah. Better thinking. And to be good jignasus, incorporate little bit of coconut oil, omega, in the diet. That's what they are saying right now. Yeah. Coconut oil. Now recently, what they have discovered? They did one study, this is in India, they did one study on people who had fairly advanced stage of Alzheimer's. Couldn't even remember these people. And one person, they did a case study, and this man could not even remember his own name half the time, and did not remember whether he was going or coming. And did you take a shower? I don't know. Are you going out or coming in? I don't know. Nothing he knew. 3 months of every day, a certain amount of, 2 tablespoons or whatever it was, I forgot the dosage, of coconut oil, and now he is perfectly fine. This is what it is. We don't know if it was Alzheimer's or some dementia, but it was obviously very bad forgetting. But this coconut oil brought the mind back. Yeah, very interesting. So I'm hoping that the coconut oil will not only bring the mind back, but gear it towards the ultimate pursuit. Because that is what the purpose of Viveka is. It's not that I should just sit all the time in class, how boring. That's not the point. Because the desires are there. Many things I want to accomplish in my life. And even a Vedantin, perhaps, a budding Vedantin has certain desires. I want to write a book, I want to, teach, I want to do this, I want to do that. All those desires have a place, but still the learning comes at the top of all the pursuits. So I have to reprioritize, I have to stand the pursuits on the head so that the learning is there, that is the main and only, prominent desire. And the other desires subserve this desire, then the other desires and their pursuits become enjoyable because it's like, it's like a full lion. I'm giving the example of the lion because it's called regal, correct? A full lion never kills, correct? It doesn't kill. And it will see a small thing go and it will just bat at it absently and then it will just let it go. A small bunny rabbit or mouse or something like that. It will, because it's got that instinct to just go, it will, perhaps it's half asleep and this mouse is running around or this rabbit is running around, rabbit-brained rabbit. And, what does it do? It will catch it, but it is full. It can't even go through the whole, the thought of running after it is digesting a hyena right now. And, what is this rabbit? Kya kuch nahi hai. Yeah. So it lets it go. And with one eye open, it watches it amusedly as it runs around, indulgently. That is how when one has committed to Vedanta, all the pursuits become fun and enjoyable. Enjoyable because I'm not invested in how they come out. I'm not invested in, I may be invested in being the best in that pursuit, but if I don't become the best, I'm okay. I don't feel like a pest. That is the whole thing. That is the whole thing. That is the key here. Is that when Vedanta is made the primary pursuit, all of the pursuits fall in place. And there is a place for each pursuit. But this is Mahat Padam. This is the greatest thing that can give me that freedom, of seeking without being a permanent seeker. You see that? I can seek the non-ultimate, but the seeking becomes fun. But if I seek the non-ultimate with a view that thinking it will make me it will bring me close to the ultimate, it will give me what I want, it won't. So therefore, the seeker is Avi, correct? And the sought is also Avi. So here, when I know this, I can playfully chase my own tailbone. Otherwise, it becomes a restless, fiery, dead-end pursuit that leaves this jaded, faded jiva always bored. And then come to Vedanta, I don't know. They don't even talk in complete sentences. Very, sad. So Mahat Padam means this is not only the ultimate. In other words, another meaning that no matter what you are seeking, it is this alone. You are not seeking anything else other than this. No, but I really like that. That is this. Yeah, that is Vedanta. Etat Vaitat. Yeah. That which you are seeking, why are you seeking it? Like you tell a venture capitalist, who is having an adventure with capitalism. That's why it's called venture capitalist. I like to, I asked one person, why do you do this? I love other people's money. Why do you like other people? No, I like to make it grow. I like to do risky things. I like to make them happy when they get the money. Are you happy with other people's money? No, it's all other people's money. It's not my money. Then why are you, and then are your clients happy? No, they are also not happy. In fact, no matter how much they have, they are still sad. So I'm doing it for the thrill. I'm doing it because it excites me. What excites is not the money. What excites is the love of learning here, how to manipulate the money in different places, how to save it from itself. Meaning inflation. That's what it is. Money is a very dangerous thing. It has to be saved from itself. And so, if you talk to someone, a banker, a venture capitalist, they handle a lot of money, most of it other people's, and then what will they say? It is not that which thrills me. What thrills me is just this quest. But the quest also, then what happens? The quest is a very flimsy quest, subject to the vagaries of the, stock market weather. Yeah. And then finally, when you take stock of your life, what is there? Just lots of ups and downs, literally, and that's what it is. And so the money is not, that is what is satisfying. The chase is not satisfying. That's why it's called chase bank. Yeah, you keep chasing. You keep chasing after something or the other. The chase is not satisfying, the money is not satisfying, but I think it is and I continue to pursue and I become restless. Whereas, if you are a Vedantin and then whatever you do has an element of enjoyment and fun, because whatever you pursue, that is why that 13th and the 14th and the 15th chapters, Vishayanande Brahmananda. If you are just wanting after, sense objects, what you want is Brahman and what you are pursuing is Brahman. The truth of all the objects is Brahman. No, I'm not such a gross person. I'm a subtle learner. I just keep on to learning this, that or the other. Vidyanande Brahmananda. In Vidya, in any body of learning, what you're seeking is that oneness with Brahman. When you want to be the best, you're seeking the best. The best is nothing but yourself. I want to be the ultimate. That ultimate is you. Then what? No, I like yoga. Yoganande Brahmananda. Yoga means both karma yoga and also yogasanas. In that, why do you do yogasana? To be peace, to have calm, peace, quiet. That's what it is. Why do gain money? To feel secure and calm about my life. Why do you pursue anything? To feel secure and calm. So really speaking, then what is the pursuit? Insecurity is that security is the pursuit for the one who is insecure. The one who is secure is Avi. The one who is insecurely pursuing is also Avi. Avi plus the superimposition of Ajnanam and insecurity. That is why it is called Mahat Padam. Known, it is better than if it is unknown. If it is unknown, my life is in disarray. If it is known, my life comes together with a nice, present wrapped with a bow. That is what it is. More we shall see in the month of December. We'll keep you posted. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Very nice. Any questions? Yeah, that was a long class, and I'm happy that you were all able to sit. All the credit goes to you.
Well, I had a few. It seems that the category of the questions that keep on coming up for me have to do with overlays of my Western thought and trying to put together the other things. So today you're talking about pramada, and I keep on hearing, and we don't talk about the knower. We talk about being a student or knowledge, but there's no focus
Correct.
on the knower
Right.
in the West.
Yes.
And but we do have a focus on what stops me from knowing, which would be ego.
Yes.
And so, when you talk about pramada,
Yeah.
does ego come in? Is that part of the Hindu?
Yeah. Ego is ahankara, but the ahankara is a generic word because the ego is many things. The ego is knower, the ego is so many other things. The ego is hearer, thinker. Because when you say hearer, that which that I notion alone hears, the I notion also sees. But here when we say pramata, we invoke the ego or the ahankara as in the form of the knower. Yeah. The ahankara that is attached to feeling, I know I am the knower. That is what we are invoking here. Okay?
And so, the other one, which I'd love to put to rest, which is
Hiranyagarbha.
Yeah, I don't know why. But I think what happened, because yesterday something settled, but I think what happened was the power of all the potential just seems, was more than my mind could grasp. But, it's like watching all the National Geographic movies at the same time, and Cosmos and everything, because it's the underlying, but it's the underlying of the Jagat. And that's what you put to rest yesterday.
Yeah, that's all. You understood it. You have said it beautifully. That's all it is.
And so that means there's so much more
Yes.
than what this was so filled with that.
Yeah, exactly. This is also that. It's that Avi alone, which is Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is not, Hiranyagarbha is Avi. Avi is not only Hiranyagarbha.
Yes.
That's what you have to understand. And you just said it. Yeah. Wonderful. We'll see you all at 4 o'clock for a marathon session, 1 more hour of learning Bhagavad Gita and the section on Sthita Prajna. Oh.